Hey, John from the Blockade Runner Podcast here, and with Star Wars Celebration coming to Chicago in just over a week, I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of show off some of my favorite places in the city. Now, I live about an hour north of Chicago, so I'm not from Chicago per se, but I'm there all the time and have been throughout my life, and I just want to kind of show off a few places I think that people coming in for Star Wars Celebration might enjoy if you get a couple of spare hours and you want to explore the city a little bit. Logan Arcade is a great arcade in Chicago. It's a little bit north of McCormick Place, but it is definitely worth the trip. Maybe it's going to take you 20 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that from McCormick Place, but totally worth it. It has a great selection of pinball machines and also a killer selection of arcade games, and so tons of fun to be had as far as that's concerned. The atmosphere in Logan Arcade is really great. It's super cool decor. There's like Ben Cooper and like vintage Halloween masks and stuff all over the walls within the arcade. Cool music playing, just like a cool like bar arcade to hang out in. And there's a bunch of those in Chicago, but this is the one I think that has sort of the best vibe to it, and a great selection of games, great drinks, just everything you're going to want if you're looking for like a cool arcade or bar to hang out in for a couple hours while you're in the city. Now, there is the Galloping Ghost Arcade, which is about twice as far away from McCormick Place and actually outside of the city itself, but that is the largest arcade in North America and has something like 600 arcade games. So if you have a car or you're willing to make a longer trip, definitely recommend Galloping Ghosts as well. I mean, that's the kind of experience that you can only get in Chicago or near Chicago. I don't know of too many other places like Galloping Ghost anywhere in the country. So that is one if you're a big game fan or you want like sort of the ultimate arcade experience. Galloping Ghost is fantastic, but it's a little different vibe there. It's not really a bar or anything like that. It's just rows and rows and rows of almost every arcade game you can imagine. So also another great choice would be to go to Galloping Ghost. I know a lot of us are going to be burning the candle at both ends while we're in town for Celebration, and it's going to be a lot of long days, super great days, but super long days, and we're going to need some energy. We're going to be looking for some coffee, and we're going to be drinking whatever coffee we can come across when we're at McCormick Place or, nearby. So totally that's understood. But if you venture away from McCormick Place, if you find yourself out and about in the city, highly recommend checking out Intelligentsia Coffee. And there's a couple locations in the city, but this is some top caliber coffee. Super good. They're known nationwide, known throughout the country. You can subscribe and have their coffee sent to you as well, if you want to do that. So you may have heard of Intelligentsia. It's pretty well known at this point, but just unbelievable coffee, and you can definitely find an Intelligentsia in a couple different areas within Chicago. In fact, there's one near Millennium Park, and that's someplace you might find yourself anyways if you're exploring the city. So definitely worth checking out Intelligentsia if you get the chance. So Reckless is a great place to spend an afternoon or an hour or two if you're out and about and near one of their locations. Just a cool record store, a great selection of LPs, obviously, but they also carry movies, Blu-rays, DVDs, that sort of thing, and you probably always find some kind of like Star Wars collectible there as well. Now, depending on where you live, you might have a great record store nearby, and maybe checking out a Reckless is not as appealing. But if you don't have a cool record store near where you live and you're kind of out in the Chicago area exploring the city, Reckless would be great to check out. So one of my favorite places to eat in the city is the Chicago Diner. The Chicago Diner is completely vegan, vegetarian, and so you have to be up for that. But, if you've gotten your fill of Chicago pizza or you happen to be vegetarian or vegan, Chicago Diner is like a fantastic place to go. It's diner-style food, so very filling, very kind of hearty, and it's great if you're out and just looking for a solid meal, but maybe want to do a vegetarian thing. It's an indulgent pick on my part, I guess, but I really love Chicago Diner. And not only do I love Chicago Diner, and vegetarian or vegan friends of mine love it as well, but friends and family members that I have that are not vegetarian, they also love Chicago Diner. It's one of the vegetarian restaurants I've taken people to that, whether they're vegetarian or not, they end up loving it. So I feel like it's a really popular choice with a lot of people. It's well known in Chicago, and well loved. And even if you're out and just looking for maybe like a dessert type thing, they have incredible milkshakes, like fantastic milkshakes, and they are vegan, but they're unbelievable. And so, yeah, totally. Stop in for a meal, Chicago Diner, or even just to grab a milkshake or even a beer. So something that's easily accessible from McCormick Place and also free is to check out the Lakefront Trail in Chicago. So, a lot of the places I'm recommending today, they are a little bit of a trip from McCormick Place in that sort of South Loop downtown area where a lot of us are going to be staying. But you can get to the Lakefront Trail very easily. It's very close by to McCormick Place, and it's going to follow the entire sort of lakefront, hence the name. And so if you want to sort of walk the path, or you can rent a bike for a couple bucks, and those divvy stations with the bike rentals are all over the place in Chicago. You could rent a bike and kind of cruise up and down the lake and scope out the skyline and just kind of like check out the city that way. That's a great thing to do as well. So beautiful views and, a free and quick and easy way to kind of just, get a nice view of Chicago and sort of feel like you've soaked up a little bit of what the city has to offer. All right, so those are my recommendations for things to check out if you're coming into Chicago for Star Wars Celebration. If you do end up checking any of those out, let us know in the comments or on Twitter at Blockade Run, or you can always email us at blockaderunnerpodcast@gmail.com and find everything we do at blockaderunnerpodcast.com.